You're at your bail hearing, begging the judge to release you from jail so you can prepare the best defense possible. Would you rather the judge be a human arbiter or a computer algorithm? This case is one of an increasing number of instances where algorithms are used to make decisions with profound consequences. Okay, take a step back. Maybe you don't think you'll be accused of any crimes anytime soon, but this problem of algorithmic bias should be important to you nonetheless, and to all of us. Algorithms are being used to make crucial decisions that affect you too, from determining how you'll find love on Tinder or whether you'll get the job. With these high stakes, it is imperative that algorithms be fair. But ensuring fairness is an onerous task. For example, let's say we could remove biased policing from our data on crime rates that's an input to a policing algorithm. Would that be enough to uphold fairness? Perhaps not, as our data may still be tainted by historic racism. In ensuring that our data and the algorithms that use that data are unbiased, we need to set standards for fairness. But this is a hard problem, as people disagree on the nature of fairness. The question of fairness isn't an empirical one, but one that will be resolved by turning to ethicists.
Ultimately, the people who will be setting the standards for what an unbiased and fair algorithm is won't be philosophers, though. They'll be politicians. Because algorithmic bias has the potential to enact injustices on their constituents, politicians have sought to enforce fairness in algorithms through legislation. Historically, the U.S. government has not played a notable role in the regulation of algorithms. In the fall of 2018, the House Subcommittee on Information Technology discussed how the government can build upon its capacity to understand, develop, and manage the risks associated with increased algorithmic use. Regarding reducing algorithmic bias, the subcommittee concluded that government agencies that use algorithmic systems to make consequential decisions about people should ensure that the algorithms supporting these systems are explicable and inspectable. However, no further legislation was introduced on the federal level. An example of a possible implementation of the subcommittee's suggestion was recently introduced in New York City. The New York City Council passed an algorithmic accountability bill that established a task force to increase transparency in the way an algorithm comes to a conclusion. Its decision-making is not permitted to be a black box. Notably, there are major gaps in proposed and passed regulation on algorithmic bias in the U.S. However, among the regulation that has been proposed, some laws may be undesirable or even impossible to implement, both technically and without corporate support.
The technical constraints on removing bias from algorithms must be highlighted. An algorithm typically takes a set of input data, finds patterns in that data, and produces an output. Each component here, the input, the pattern finding, and the output, is very difficult to make fair. The biased inputs are the first area where we run into trouble. If the algorithm is extrapolating some pattern from historical data, and that data itself carries a bias, then the algorithm will incorporate that bias. The data is based on human-made decisions, and since humans are inherently biased, the data is too. The second area is how the algorithm finds patterns in the data in order to reach a conclusion. With new machine learning algorithms that employ elements like neural networks, even the engineers who program an algorithm may not understand its inner workings. Even if it is possible to technically implement some regulation, many large companies may push back as they seek to minimize governmental interference in favor of self-regulation. Moreover, if different jurisdictions impose differing regulations, transnational companies may find it difficult to adhere to disparate and perhaps contradictory regulations. So, we've discussed how algorithmic bias creates an ethical quandary that regulators may want to legislate, but implementing solutions to algorithmic bias isn't easy. Therefore, bias may be unavoidable, but we don't mean to imply that the potential for bias in algorithms should prevent us from using them altogether.
Let's revisit our first example, the case of the bail hearing. The bail algorithm may be biased, sure, but so might the human judge. As long as the decisions that algorithms come to are less arbitrary and less biased than the ones people make, we should move towards using these algorithms that would mitigate the human biases of the status quo.